The silent border. In the early light of dawn, Antonio adjusted his worn leather bag, his gaze fixed on the jagged mountains of the Sonoran Desert, his heart steady with purpose. Behind him, Luz whispered a quiet prayer, her fingers brushing a small pouch filled with herbs she hoped would protect them on this dangerous journey. Esteban glanced at the vast expanse of desert before them, feeling both awe and trepidation as he clutched his only pencil, a small reminder of his artistic dreams. The group huddled briefly, Antonio's strong voice urging them forward, the sound of his words carried away by the warm desert wind. They moved cautiously, each footstep sinking slightly into the sand as they left the last traces of familiar ground, the village fading behind them. The sun rose higher, baking the ground underfoot and casting harsh shadows, but Antonio led with a determination that gave the others hope. Luz's eyes flickered to the scattered cacti, mentally cataloguing plants that could help if injuries or sickness struck during their journey. Esteban's thoughts drifted to America's promise, images of bustling cities and artistic freedom filling his mind as they pushed onward. Hours passed in tense silence, the air growing thicker and hotter, yet Antonio's steady pace kept their spirits from faltering. They paused under a scraggly mesquite tree, its sparse shade offering little relief, but the brief rest gave them enough strength to press forward. The heat pressed down on them, drawing sweat and sapping energy, but Antonio's quiet resilience acted as a beacon for the group. Luz shared water sparingly, each drop precious, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement, wary of threats both natural and human. Esteban stumbled on a sharp rock, scraping his knee, but Luz was quick to clean the wound with her herbs, her touch calm and practiced. As they continued, Antonio noticed faint tire tracks in the sand, the remnants of border patrols that patrolled the area. Fear flickered through the group, but Antonio's calming gaze reminded them of their shared purpose, each step bringing them closer to a new life. The border, invisible yet ever-present, loomed before them, a silent, invisible line marking the boundary of their homeland and a land of dreams. Night fell swiftly, the temperature dropping, and they huddled together, the quiet desert seeming to listen to their whispered hopes. Luz's voice rose softly in an old lullaby, her words floating on the cold air, soothing their weary minds under the stars. Esteban lay awake, the vastness of the desert above humbling him, his thoughts caught between fear and a fierce desire for something more. They rose before dawn, moving quickly to avoid detection, their path lit only by the dim glow of a fading moon. By midday, the heat returned, relentless and unforgiving, and their water supplies began to dwindle, adding to their growing anxiety. Antonio stopped, pointing to a distant shape, a border checkpoint, where uniformed men lounged beside a dusty truck. They hid among the rocks, waiting for the patrol to move on, every nerve tense as the minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, the patrol left, and Antonio led them onward, his eyes scanning the horizon for any more signs of danger. Luz felt her energy flagging but kept her face calm, her mind focused on each step as the desert terrain grew rockier and less forgiving. Esteban thought of his family back home, the memory of his mother's voice giving him strength as they pressed on. They encountered a narrow ravine, forcing them to climb carefully over jagged rocks, each movement measured and cautious. Antonio slipped slightly, catching himself just in time, his silent perseverance reassuring the others as they followed. Luz's hand found her herbs again, her touch a small comfort as she silently repeated the prayers of her ancestors for protection. Esteban's legs ached, his body weary from the journey, but the vision of a new life kept him putting one foot in front of the other. That evening, they camped on a small outcropping, their eyes wide as they spotted faint lights from distant border towns. Antonio's voice was low as he spoke, reminding them of their goal and the sacrifices they'd already made to come this far. Luz listened in silence, her fingers pressing her pouch, her heart heavy with hope and fear for the trials still ahead. Esteban sketched quietly in the dirt, his fingers tracing dreams of cityscapes and portraits he hoped to one day bring to life. The next morning, they encountered a smuggler demanding a toll, his voice cold and eyes calculating, but Antonio held firm, refusing. Tensions grew, but Antonio's unwavering stance convinced the smuggler to let them pass, his silence more powerful than any threat. They moved swiftly after, each feeling the weight of their brush with danger as the desert stretched before them. Luz whispered her thanks to the spirits, grateful for their safety, as the rugged terrain seemed to watch their every move. Esteban's hopes grew as he glimpsed a distant ridge that marked the edge of the desert, closer to their goal. Their relief was short-lived when a dust storm suddenly approached, swirling clouds obscuring their path in an ominous haze. Antonio led them to shelter behind a rock, his voice calm even as the winds howled around them, sand biting at their skin. They huddled close, enduring the storm's fury, each silently clinging to their dreams and the strength of their resolve. As the storm passed, they emerged covered in dust but determined, the familiar horizon both daunting and beautiful. Luz used her herbs to soothe their raw skin, her calm presence anchoring them as they resumed their trek. Esteban found his pencil missing, lost to the storm, but the sight of the distant border rekindled his resolve. Exhausted, they reached a barbed wire fence, the first sign of the border, each step now tinged with both hope and apprehension. Antonio cut through the wire carefully, the small sound echoing in the silence, a final act of defiance against the invisible line. They crossed quietly, their hearts pounding as they entered U.S. soil, their dreams within reach but fraught with new dangers. Just then, a border patrol spotted them, and the group scattered, hiding in the shadows as they struggled to evade capture. Luz nearly stumbled, her heart racing, but Antonio's hands steadied her, his silent assurance a comfort in the tense moment. The patrol moved on, leaving them breathless with relief as they regrouped, their journey now fraught with even greater risk. They entered a small border town, hoping to blend in, their ragged appearance drawing wary stares from passers-by. A shopkeeper noticed their plight, offering them water and bread with a quiet nod, his kindness a balm after days of hardship. Antonio thanked the man with a quiet nod, their eyes meeting in mutual understanding, a brief respite in an unforgiving land. Luz treated Esteban's sore feet with her herbs, her hands gentle as she whispered words of encouragement for their final stretch. Esteban gazed at the sky, feeling both gratitude and sorrow, their journey marked by losses and newfound strength. They reached a small migrant camp on the town's edge, weary travelers like them offering food, shelter, and whispered words of welcome. Their journey had left scars but also forged bonds, their resilience carrying them through, their hope still shining despite the trials. Antonio looked toward the horizon, his heart steady, knowing that while the border had challenged them, it had not broken their spirits.